I'm going to start today's podcast with an admission of sorts. Sometimes I post the title for a podcast and I have a pretty clear understanding that it contains, well, let's just say a little bit of hyperbole, just a tiny bit, in efforts to get people to listen or watch. But today, I will say, in all honesty, there's absolutely no hyperbole involved. There is a single word found in the Old Testament that if we don't come to grips with what it actually means, what God intended it to say, it literally has the power to lead to the end of us all. So join me for today's episode as I answer the question, what is the most dangerous word in the Bible? Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey. Hi, I'm Dan, this is Quark, and we're your pilot and co-pilot for today's quest on Sky Pilot Faith Quest podcast, the video version. Now, 30 plus years or so ago, my wife and I were living in Florida, and our son learned to ride a bike while we were living there. We were on a cul-de-sac, and it was perfect. Safe, no through traffic to worry about at all, just a bunch of kids all about the same age living on the same street. Now, several of the kids learned to ride their bikes probably within 2 or 3 days of each other, and that lit a fire under our son, Daniel. Suddenly, Daniel was a kid laser-focused on wanting to learn to ride a bike. So we went out, we bought him a suitable bike to replace his tricycle or whatever it was he was riding at the time. It was a tiny little bike that kind of looked ridiculously small, but it was the perfect size for him. And sure enough, within a day or two, no more than that, he had learned to ride his bike as well. And it immediately became his very favorite pastime. The kids would come home from school, they'd all change into their play clothes, and suddenly there would be at least 4 or 5 bicycles going round and round and round this cul-de-sac. It was really quite wonderful. Well, except for one thing. Our son had a tendency to, whenever he wanted water or he wanted to go to the bathroom or he was called in for dinner, he would just drop his bike wherever he was at the moment and just walk away, which meant that he was often in the middle of the road. Now, we started talking to him about this and trying to get him to understand that that just didn't work. We eventually got him to learn to put it away. Well, sort of. When he wanted to put it away, he would always put it in the garage.
Oh, well done. Sounds like a good lad, that son of yours.
Yeah, but in this case, well, no matter how hard we tried to tell him, he couldn't seem to grasp the idea that putting your bike away in the garage did not mean to leave it lying on the ground in the garage. Yes, it's in the garage, but lying on the ground directly in front of the car. I almost drove over it several times. I did bump into it and drag it a foot or two. I think it was twice. And then finally, inevitably, the day came and I ran over it. I absolutely crushed it, flat as a pancake. As it turned out, Daniel was in the car with me when it happened, and I heard the noise, and in that moment, surprisingly, I had no idea what it was until I investigated. Got out of the car, took a look, saw it, and then I climbed back in because there beneath the car was a little bicycle that was no longer three-dimensional. I got back in the car and thought, okay, I have failed as a parent to help him learn this, to understand the importance of this. But this moment right now will be a learning experience for him. Daniel, you left your bike in front of the car again. I didn't know it was there, and I drove over it. It's crushed flat. It can't be fixed. Now, I was prepared to deal with what came after that. I was expecting grief. I expected tears. What I did not expect was what he said next. It's okay. You can buy me another one. Evidently, as a parent, I had fully succeeded in teaching him that everything is disposable. Everything is replaceable. Now, we're going to return to this story in just a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor.
We don't have a sponsor.
No, not a monetary sponsor, more like a sponsor of everything.
I'm still not following.
God, Quark. God is our sponsor. God is everyone's sponsor. So now, a word from our sponsor.
Oh my, could you have possibly made that any more confusing?
Nope, don't think so. So let's look at the very beginning of the Bible. God, in the process of forming creation out of nothing, decided to make humanity. Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humans in His image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." Now, there isn't anything particularly new here. I imagine that every listener or viewer of this podcast is aware of this story, but there's an interesting word, a powerful word, and it's used twice here, and the word is dominion. Let's make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air. Now, to the point. If dominion means what a lot of Christians claim it means, then we're in bad shape. If dominion means that we have been given all of creation to use and to abuse as we see fit, again, I think we are in serious trouble. So let's go back for a moment to the bicycle story, because I think there's some parallels to be found there. When we gave Daniel that bicycle, we did indeed give it to him to own and to use as his very own. But though he owned the bike, there was never an understanding on our part that we as parents no longer cared about the treatment of the bike that we had given to him just because it now belonged to him. Matter of fact, quite to the contrary, we gave him the bike to make use of, to enjoy, and to take care of. Had Daniel, in a real sense, been given dominion by us over his bicycle? Oh, absolutely. And since we gave Daniel the gift, did we still feel a vested interest in the gift we had given him? That's a definite yes as well. Strangely, the word dominion is also accompanied by the word subdue. The word that is translated as subdue into English in the noun form means literally a footstool, something you put your foot on. And the verb form of the word can absolutely have kind of the same meaning, the meaning of vanquishing an enemy. The image the word is meant to evoke is this situation in which you defeat an enemy and then you place your foot on his throat, breaking him into submission or even killing him, whichever you deem is appropriate or needed. Now, I am at this point reminded of a scene from a television show of my youth. Have you ever seen the show Lost in Space?
Oh, yes, I love that show.
Oh, yeah. I should have thought that you would. Well, in one episode, they come across a humanoid robot that has been created with one purpose, and one purpose alone: destruction. So as the robot goes along, it repeats its mantra. Here, I'll play the clip for you.
Crush, kill, destroy. Crush, kill, destroy. Crush, kill, destroy.
It seems to me that one interpretation is that we are charged with similar duties as the android. The word dominion can have a similar meaning, but dominion can also have an alternative meaning as well, which means to walk in the midst of something. It can mean to take responsibility for something by becoming a part of the thing for which you are responsible. So let's just think for a moment. When God created everything and gave humanity responsibility for creation, are we to think that our intended role was to vanquish creation like it's an evil enemy? Or are we to think that we were to embrace God's creation and care for it? You know, like a treasured gift. Now, the truth is, the word definitions alone cannot tell us what God intended. I can say the word is sometimes used in one way, and you might counter that it is clearly also used in another way. All of that is in Scripture. So it seems to me the only way to understand what God truly intended is to look at the context of this passage. Did God intend us to vanquish creation or to cherish it and care for it? So right after God gives humanity dominion, there's an interesting passage in which I think he pretty clearly affirms humanity's intended role and relationship with creation. Immediately following the passage that I read earlier to you in this podcast is the following. God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed, it was very good. God did indeed give humanity dominion over creation, but we should read the entire passage before we understand that as meaning that we have been given carte blanche to do whatever we like with creation. God formed all of creation and then gave humanity dominion, and Scripture says God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. I'd like to believe that no further explanation is necessary at this point, because that's really where I want to leave it today. That's all. We have been given dominion over all of creation, but before we get too full of ourselves and believe that it's ours to use, abuse, and pollute without consequence, we should be sure to read the whole passage. God formed creation, gave us responsibility, and then God looked upon all that had been created and said, "It is very good." Sometimes at the end of a video, I invite debate. This is not going to be one of those times. If you believe that creation is ours to use and abuse as we see fit, I will say, without equivocation, you are wrong. And I pray to God that there are not too many people with that same opinion. Yeah, there's too much riding upon this. Be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell. Oh, and on your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you. Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.